Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. We're going to do something a little different. We did our USC preview yesterday, and we had a recap earlier in the week. We are going to talk specifically about the apparel deal and all the ins and outs, the latest that Richie's hearing, and everything that kind of went into the situation that we find ourselves in today. But before we get into that, this show is presented to you by Knight and Day Apparel. Get ready for football and tailgating season with Knight and Day Apparel. Our apparel is designed to keep you comfortable and stylish from the pregame excitement to the final whistle. Whether you're grilling in the parking lot or cheering from the stands, our high-quality gear has you covered with unbeatable comfort and team spirit. Use our promo code Rutgers Rivals to get 10% off your purchase. Score big this season and keep shopping with Knight and Day Apparel.
I'm told that some basketball stuff will be coming out very shortly, so keep an eye on that.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, still some fire stuff.
Also,
that bomber jacket is awesome.
That bomber jacket, I'm probably going to get, I bought one in my size every time we go to any of the sporting events. My girlfriend's always wanting to wear that. She actually asked me to get her one in her size for Christmas. So
there you go. Use the promo code Rutgers Rivals and you get a little discount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I like that one way better than the home field bomber jacket that just came out for Rutgers. Just because I prefer black over red for that kind of stuff.
And home field, use Rutgers Rivals. Just saying.
Yeah, anywhere you're trying to buy something that's maybe tangentially related to football or college sports, just try out Rutgers Rivals. It'll probably get you some money off at the register. But this podcast is also presented to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, basketball fans, it's that time of year again. NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, BetOnline is you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup, and live odds to bet on during games. It's not just NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, and even political props. Head to the website today and get in on the action with America's most trusted online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.
It's an interesting ad read.
Yeah, they just changed it up. So
I know, it's just the ending.
Bear with me here.
Yikes.
Yeah. All right, so let's go through the timeline of events with Rutgers and Adidas, why Rutgers is no longer with Adidas, and what's next for Rutgers athletics. So Rutgers signed a 6-year deal in 2017 with Adidas. Do you have the terms of that deal up somewhere?
I can pull it up real quick. I have the download file, whatever.
I believe it was a 6-year deal for something like $11 million?
10.5 or something like that.
So they signed this deal. It expires in 2023. We had Pat Hobbs on last year, so take this with a grain of salt. He said that the deal had been extended with Adidas. There's a bunch of news coverage around it.
Mm-hmm.
But we kept asking for the actual contract. And Rutgers, through FOIA requests, continued to say that didn't exist. The only thing you got back was the original contract that had since expired.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of good reporting out this week, including from yourself. The actual deal never got signed. It was agreed to in principle. We were working kind of on I guess like a handshake agreement where we were getting like discounted apparel from Adidas, but we didn't actually have an apparel contract. So now that we've kind of laid the terms out, kind of gone through some of the backstory, how did Rutgers get itself into this position where it doesn't have an official apparel sponsor for most of what was supposed to be its biggest year in a long time in terms of college athletics?
So going back, it was a 7-year deal, or no, 6-year deal, and Rutgers received a little under 13 mil in terms of gear, money, blah, 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 everything else. Because that's how those deals work. It's not like you're just receiving like 10 years worth of 100-something mil if you're Michigan. You're getting 100-something mil, or I'm sorry, you're getting 90-something mil of apparel. And then you get the little price tag afterwards. But going back to December, 2023, I asked around about everything, about like, hey, like this deal's been expired since June 2023. Like, what's the scoop? What's going on? I was told there's a good chance Rutgers re-signs with Adidas. Now, like you mentioned, I did Oprah requests nonstop. Kind of those people probably hate me now because I was just like once a week, like, hey, is there anything new? Hey, is there anything new? Hey, is there anything new? Got to the point where I got an email from them saying like, we will let you know. Like, well, don't just stop sending. Like, we'll let you know. It's like, okay, I'm sorry, but whatever, journalism, right? Uh, Long story short, I was told or we were told actually back on the Night Report podcast in late March, this past late March 2024, by Pat Hobbs, that the deal has been extended with Adidas and they will be staying with Adidas. Now that's an agreed in principle deal. Nothing was signed. Nothing was etched in stone. I know people were like, well, we got these recruits coming in. We're supposed to have a big football season. Like, did they talk to Nike? Did they talk to, I don't even know who else they would talk to. Puma, I guess. But I don't think Puma has football stuff. That's another issue, which I'll get to down the line. But I was told from a trusted source, a very trusted source that would know, that they had, end quote, we have not reached out to Nike and they have not reached out to us. So there you go, end quote. So there was no interest from Nike at all whatsoever. Now, this is where things get really complicated because the deal was only agreed to in principle. They were expected to sign the contract sometime over the next couple months. It never happened, and that's where Rutgers started buying Adidas gear at a discounted price. Like, they needed football jerseys. You got to order those things like 3 or 4 months ahead of time at least, because there's 100-something players on the team, and you need 3 of every jersey. You need your alternate, you need your red, you need your white. Hell, you need a gray one now, apparently, for spring games if you're on the special teams. On top of that, you need the practice jerseys, you need the gear, you need the cleats, you need the padding, you need, I don't know if they actually do like the braces and stuff like that. I'm assuming that's like McDonough or some shit. But regardless, you need all this gear for football. So they put that order in for Adidas, got it for a discounted price. They put it in for other programs as well, put it in for basketball, thinking they were going to be an Adidas basketball team. That's why you have new uniforms with the new Adidas logo, like the one on your hat. The old logo had Adidas written underneath. They no longer do that. It's just the logo now. Couple months go by. No deal still. Pat Hobbs gets into his little debacle, whatever. Nike came back to the table. Nike's like, hey, we noticed you haven't signed the deal. Like, what's going on here? Back in January, rewind again to January 2024, new GM of basketball from North America for Nike gets hired. Where did he go to school? Where did he get his MBA, mini MBA? Rutgers. This is where he's like, oh shit, like Rutgers on an apparel deal. Now, when you get hired in January, I'm assuming Rutgers apparel deal is not at the top of the list for the Nike basketball GM.
I do want to put he had worked for Nike for a long time. He got elevated. Yes. He got promoted to that position.
But I'm saying in January, like, you think the first thing on his mind is like, Rutgers, I'm going to get them. Like, no, it's like, holy shit, I'm in charge of the entire, not even just a country, the fucking continent of North America. Like, it's insane. So that's not the first thing on his mind, but they did go out. They did sign Dylan Harper. Dylan signs his his Nike deal. Dylan's wore Nike his entire life. Now, Ace Bailey is an interesting scenario. So he technically hasn't signed officially or publicly with Nike because he was getting courted by multiple brands. We know for a fact he was courted by Reebok, who's trying to rebrand everything that they've done for a basketball division. They hired Shaq to run that division. We know he's also courted by Nike. I think he's going to sign with Nike when it's all said and done, but regardless, besides the point. So there's no deal on the table. Nike came to the table, and it sounds like Nike is in current talks with Rutgers as we speak, and they're expected to get a deal done rather shortly. They want to get it done ASAP. The main thing driving apparel deals nowadays is football. The main thing driving Rutgers apparel deal is this basketball season. And yeah, I mean, I guess everything else helps. Football drives the bus revenue-wise. Basketball is driving the shoe company. Shout out to Aaron Brightman because I kind of just stole his tweet and just used it again, basically. I reworded it a little bit. But yeah, so basically they're going to be Nike, it sounds like. It's almost etched in stone that we probably going to have to bother that Oprah lady again and be like, hey, Poke, like, did you get a new contract yet? But yeah, no, it sounds like Nike will be taking over. And this is huge for Rutgers. I didn't even get to that part yet, but I feel like I talked for a while, so I'll let you chime in.
No, this is great. I mean, I don't really have any inside information outside of what you've told me about this, but it just sounds like this whole situation, like, why were we not more proactive in this? Like, obviously, like, a couple prospects like Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, I'm sure were very vocal in telling Steve Peichel, like, hey, man, we want to come here, but we're not wearing Adidas. Like, and I'm sure that was well known. As you've reported, you've heard that at one point Rutgers was willing to pay all the fines if there was any related. Obviously, that wasn't the case because they never signed a deal. But why didn't this get done earlier?
It's a good question. I actually am shocked that they didn't sign with Adidas. The agreed in principle, which I forgot to mention before, was eventually canceled this summer at some point. And as soon as it got canceled, that's when Nike came to the table. But there's also like a lot of logistics behind it. Like Dylan, it's not just a fine, I was told. It's more so they're taking a percentage of that contract, and you're going to lose like essentially $1 million plus if you let them play in Nikes for the entire season. Now, this is where it gets interesting because Dylan was like very adamant on playing in the Nikes, which, hey, man, you're my first 5-star. Do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. Like, you could wear Converse, Nike brand, by the way, if you wanted to. You could wear Pumas. You could wear Filas. You could wear the old Shaq Gnosises. I don't care as long as you're in a Rutgers uniform. So that's basically how Rutgers saw it. It's interesting because Ace was wearing Adidas shoes throughout the training camp, summer workouts, and everything. And then one day we just noticed he switched to Nike, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess if Dylan's doing it and you prefer Nike, you wear the Nikes. So it sounds like probably maybe Adidas was a little bit courting Ace as well. Didn't work, but yeah, I feel like they should have been a little bit more proactive. But at the same time, this is a Nike brand that lowballed the hell out of Rutgers back in 2016 before they signed the Adidas deal. That's the reason they signed with Adidas in the first place, is because Nike came to the table and was like, yeah, dude, like you guys really haven't done much for us. Here's your bare minimum deal. Essentially what they gave Minnesota. Minnesota got, what was it? I just had it pulled up. 7 years from Nike in 2015 for $15 million. Now, obviously, apparel, money, blah, blah, blah. 15 mil over 7 years is like chump change for an apparel deal. Like you do the math, like another deal that was made in, let's say 2016 for Wisconsin. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's Under Armour. Illinois, 2016 got 10 years for 44 million. A little bit more, not much more, but it's a little bit more. But like they were just lowballing the hell out of Rutgers, and Rutgers was like, dude, we can just go shop around and see what else is what. Adidas at the time was actually on the rise. Forget who they had on their brands, but they had a bunch of big name guys. But they ended up going to Adidas, and
well, at the time they had James Harden. At the time in 2017, he was an MVP. Like they had Dame, who at the time was a top 10 player in the NBA. They didn't have Anthony Edwards at the time, but he's one of the top 5 players in the NBA now. So they've had some pretty big hits, but ultimately, like they haven't had the same level of I guess, cultural relevance that Nike has. Like Nike is just so head and shoulders above every other apparel company, both in terms of quality and relevance in terms of the marketplace. So
yeah, 100%. And now, like it's not just the brand and letting these guys wear what they want. Now it's on top of it, recruiting wise, it's so much easier now for Rutgers. You see all these most of these schools in college basketball and college athletics are Nike. Most of the events you go to, the EYBL event, who owns it? Nike. You go to the City of Palms Classic, who runs it? Nike. Everything basketball recruiting wise is Nike, 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 Nike. Shoe brands and TV networks essentially run college athletics. It's how it works. TV networks are going to tell you when you're going to play and what time you're going to play, where you're going to play, basically. The brands are going to tell you, hey, here's the money. I want this kid from a Nike high school to a Nike college to wearing Nikes in the pros. You see it all the time. Like it's how it works. So to have Nike now is huge for Rutgers on the recruiting front. Look at the example that we always use. Coleman Hawkins would have probably ended up at Rutgers if they weren't an Adidas brand. If they were a Nike brand, he probably would have ended up at Rutgers. That's a full-blown fact. And Coleman Hawkins, he just got, what was he, number 2 in NIL this offseason? Like, he's a stud. So imagine having him on that, I don't even know if you call it a redeem team. What was that? What did they call him? The Geo Baker, Caleb McConnell, the Ron Harper team. They had a nickname for those guys, and I can't remember what it was.
If they had one.
Either way, but imagine having Coleman Hawkins on that team. You know how much deeper that tournament run could have been, or tournament runs.
Imagine Coleman Hawkins on this team.
I mean that too. Yeah, of course. But that requires a significant bag. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think having Nike is huge just from a recruiting standpoint. It makes it easier. From an apparel standpoint, it makes it easier. And like I said before, this basketball season is driving the Nike bus more and more, or driving the apparel brand more and more. Nike is going to give you everything you want for this basketball season. Will it continue after this year? To be determined. I think they're going to sign a long-term deal, so Nike's still going to be around. Will they give you as much as they're going to give you this year? Prove your worth. It's probably what it is. It's probably going to be a prove your worth type of deal. And if Rutgers makes a deep run, they're going to be so happy that they signed with Rutgers. And you're going to have a Nike logo here. You're going to have a Nike logo on shoes, shorts, headband, blah, blah, blah. Plus, you got your two superstars happy wearing whatever shoe they want, which that's another issue because I think a Cooper Flag wore New Balances in their exhibition the other day. And even though it's an exhibition, it counts as a regular season game. So I'm intrigued to see how that one works out because they're not going to up and say, "Hey, I'm Duke. I'm not getting rid of Nike if I'm Duke. Like I'm going to keep Nike, but you're definitely going to piss off Nike by having the number one player in the country and goddamn Kawhi Leonard's. Like, what are we doing?
How do you not, if you're Nike, sign this kid? Like,
it's insane.
I don't know. And that's another thing that I think is not being fully scoped out. Like these shoe brands, you want to get in with these athletes as soon as possible because it's very rare that they switch brands once they enter the NBA. It happens. Don't get me wrong. It does happen, but they establish these relationships. They cater to these guys, hand and foot, literally and figuratively. They're trying to build these lifetime relationships with players. And so to get in at the ground level with an Ace Bailey, with a Dylan Harper, it could be a 30-year relationship for Nike. This could be, their next. These guys legitimately could be MVPs of the NBA one year, and Nike wants those type of players in Nike gear. So you're gonna see, especially if Rutgers performs to the level that we think they can, you're gonna see these guys probably on national commercials. You're gonna see a push. Like these brands have a big influence on things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like if you're seeing a nonstop onslaught of Nike advertisements with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, like there's no way you're not going to give them more concessions in terms of Rutgers for a lot of things, like in terms of seeding in the NCAA tournament, in terms of maybe, where they're placed in regional brackets is huge. So there's vested interest in Rutgers having success outside of our own university this season, which is huge.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see, God forbid they go on a big run. You'll see billboards on New York City, Times Square, this and that. Nike, you've seen it before. Like, look at what Nike did in Cleveland. A weird comparison, I guess, but with LeBron, they threw up a giant banner in the middle of Akron. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Nike's thrown up as soon as this deal gets done, assuming it gets done. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Nike billboards throughout Piscataway, throughout the Turnpike and 287, etc., Parkway, whatever. It's just such a big brand. It is the premier brand. It's such a big move. It's actually huge for Rutgers. Like anyone that's saying otherwise is just flat out wrong because this move is ginormous because you're signing with the premier company in college athletics. And I'm telling you, when I say this, they're giving those kids anything they want this year. You want these Nikes, we'll get them for you. You want these custom Kobe's? You think those didn't come from Nike? Those custom Kobe's with the little jersey logo on it? Those are, by the way, insane. Like absolutely sick. The Dylan wears.
Yep.
They'll give these kids literally any shoe they want that's Nike branded. So it is just huge. I'm intrigued to see the details when they come out of what the deal is going to be. I don't think they'll lowball them as much as they would previously, as much as they lowballed the shit out of Minnesota. But Nike wants that logo. Even in like these losses, like I shouldn't say losses, the one loss against the exhibition game didn't even count. And you look at the numbers, the metrics that like, look at the YouTube videos. Look at our YouTube highlights from the game. It's like, holy shit.
Just type in Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey into YouTube, and you're going to see dozens of draft analysts breaking down the tape from that game. Mm-hmm. Just like I was watching one the other day. It was literally an hour-long tape session.
Yeah.
Only breaking down Ace Bailey's game from that one preseason game. That's it. A full hour this guy did, and it was all like it was really good. I forget his name, so I'm saying it now, and I wish I knew who the creator was to give him some credit. But it was a great breakdown. But like, this is crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's insane what's going on, but yeah, I just think this is such a big move. It's a power move, to be honest, if you want to call it that. And they're pushing to get this deal done before November 6th. They're trying to get these uniforms out there for this team before November 6th versus Wagner, even though I think, is that game on Big Ten Plus? No, that's on BTN, right? That one's on
That's
BTN.
on BTN. Yeah.
One of them's on Big Plus, and I forget which one it is, but
Yeah, the first 4 games I believe are all on. 3 of the 4 are on Big Ten Network. The 4th is on BTN Plus.
okay, so that's what it is. Yeah, they want to get these uniforms out ASAP, and you saw probably in the NJ.com article too. Most of these other teams don't even have uniforms because Rutgers wasn't preparing, I guess. For that one.
I had a question about that, and maybe you don't know, which is fine. So, let's say the deal doesn't get done before November 6th. Mm-hmm. Is Rutgers going to wear the Adidas jerseys but cover the logos? Are they gonna? Because I know that Dylan Harper's jersey that just went on the NIL store is logoless. So, do you know how that's going to play itself out?
That is intriguing. I did ask around a little bit. I didn't get a certified 100% answer, but it sounds like they'd probably just, since they're not affiliated with anyone, they might just rock the jerseys they have with the Adidas logo there. I don't know if they'll, like, it looks so ghetto if you tape over it. Like, what are we doing? Like, you can't tape over the jersey. Like, it's like, hey, I'm not wearing a Nike hoodie right now. And it's like, oh, wait, yeah, I am. And then, the tape's going to fall off knowing Rutgers. Yep. And someone's going to trip on it, and then there goes the season. Knock on wood. But I think it's called taping. There's a word for it when you cover the logo of something.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I think it's called taping, just because obviously you tape over it. But I from what I know, it's probably going to rock those jerseys if they don't get them in time. But I think that there's too much pressure on both sides to not get this deal like done and over with. And it'd be just kind of weird, like, to wear Adidas shoes. Yeah, I guess it's not weird. They did it the other day. So, yeah, it sounds like they would probably just wear whatever they have for now. Like, these are new uniforms, so to speak, because it is the new Adidas logo. The old Adidas logo is the one they wore last year. Who knows? But
yeah, we'll see how that actually plays out. But just a really kind of interesting, strange, surreal saga that has stretched for some reason right to the start of a season while other sports are in season as well. Mm-hmm. But it just goes to show how much basketball drives the bus on apparel. While basketball is not the primary moneymaker for college sports teams or college sports programs,
most if not
all, it's pretty clear that basketball runs the show in terms of apparel deals, because you're not going out and buying Mahomes football cleats and wearing them out and about, but you will go buy Kobe's and wear them to the store. You'll go buy Kobe's and wear them on the court. You'll go buy Kobe's and wear them out to the club. Like, people will wear basketball shoes everywhere, and it's just like so much bigger in terms of a moneymaker than any other sport in terms of apparel.
You see it, like, even like, this is another dumb comparison, but like in my men's league, like, if you just play men's league basketball, everyone's like, oh shit, what are those? Those are Kobe's? Oh, those are nice. Mm-hmm. This is it. It's all Nike. And I've tried the Adidas shoes. They're just not as comfortable. They don't tie as tight as the Nikes, and everyone wants their shoes to be as, other than LeBron, who has like the world's heaviest shoe, wants their shoe to be as light as possible and as tight as possible. So you can just make all those movements, make all those cuts. I think that, like, it's just, like you said, it's just a name thing too. Like, you go to a Friday night, you're going out to the bar and people are rocking like Nikes and Jordans and this. And if a guy's rocking like James Harden's or Ant Edwards threes, it's like, oh, cool. Like, that's sure, dude. Like, they're going to get dirty anyway. But then you see a guy walk in with like Jordans, like, oh shit, he's got like the Obsidian 12s. Or I can name like Jordan 1 through 12. I can name the Kobe's. Ironically, one of his best shoes are Adidas, or were Adidas before he went to Nike. But
yeah, those like I don't even know what they're called. It was the Kobe 2s, I think, or like some of the ugliest shoes we've ever seen for Adidas. You know what I'm talking about?
You're talking about the Crazy 8s.
Uh,
I'll
no, I'm
pull them
talking
up real
about
quick. These are the ones I'm talking about.
no.
Like these are like the classic.
Those are sick. I'm talking about the Kobe twos. Check out the Kobe twos. Those were like the worst shoes I've ever
Kobe
seen.
2. Oh Lord.
those were like those were apparently they were like the most uncomfortable shoes that Kobe's ever worn. He said.
Jeez. Yeah. Well, there's a reason why he switched to Nike, but
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, look at all his shoes, his shoe line. Like Dylan wears every version of them.
Yep.
Like those are sick kicks. There we go, kicks. We're using kicks now. I'm getting old. Yeah, but huge. It's going to be Nike. It sounds like it's almost done. It's etched in stone. And I mentioned before, I don't mention it again. They're not really going to go out and reach out to Puma. They're not going to go reach out to New Balance because look at what Boston College did with New Balance. They signed with New Balance. New Balance doesn't make football apparel, so they had to sign with a different company just for football. Like that's like half-assed to me. Like
Yeah, that's not a great look.
I know it's a Boston, New England company, but like make football gear if you're going to do all this.
Yep, totally agree. Just such a poverty thing to do is sign with a company like
very Boston
like
College thing to do.
Yeah, very much. That's kind of all I got on this. Was there anything that you wanted to touch on before we head out of here that we didn't talk about?
Yes, keeping it hoops centric. Houston, see ya. Thank God. Number 1 in the country preseason. Like let's not do that one. So Houston, for those that don't know, Houston's no longer going to be playing Rutgers in the Vegas Players Era Festival MTE. But they will be playing. Who was it? Oregon. One of Oregon, San Diego State.
They'll be playing one of Oregon, San Diego State, Texas A&M, or Creighton on the other side of the bracket.
Okay.
So the way it's going to work
easier
is each team plays 2 games on their side of the bracket. I think there's the Impact bracket and the Power bracket. I think those are the 2 names. You're going to play the team from the other side of the bracket that finishes in the same place as you on your side. So with only 2 games getting played for each team, you're going to have weird tiebreakers. And so obviously the first tiebreaker is going to be win-loss.
Yeah.
The second tiebreaker, though, is going to be head-to-head. The third is going to be point differential. So point differential is huge because if you've watched the NBA in-season tournament, those games get weird at the end of the game where you have teams that are just like, if you didn't know why they were doing it, you'd think they're running up the score unnecessarily. So I think you're going to have to kind of it's almost like you're going to have to teach the team to play differently for those 2 games than you would the rest of the season because there is significant money in NIL attached to what place you come in the tournament. Yep. So I just want to throw that out there as a weird little quirk where if Alabama, hypothetically, not saying this will happen, but if they end up, launching threes with a minute left to go against Rutgers and they're up by 23, like that's why it's happening.
I think you're going to see some beatdowns. Like I'm intrigued to see a Steve Peichel squad just keep pouring it on a Notre Dame team and just seeing if they can. Like, it's also a little like hey, fuck you, buddy. You convinced one of my players to go in the portal too. By the way, remember this?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and you landed Matalako, who Rutgers really wanted this offseason.
That's going to be fun. It makes for more exciting basketball too because guys actually have to play till the end instead of like, hey, we're down 20, game's over, 5 minutes left. You're still going to play. Like you're going to have to play your starters a little bit too. Like, it should be fun. I thought that was very interesting, and it also helps a little bit Rutgers' schedule. It doesn't. I shouldn't say it helps. It helps and hurts. I mean, they're going to play it looks like a Q1, whether it be Creighton, Oregon, San Diego State, or A&M. They're all probably going to be Q1, also because it's neutral. So that plays a role, but not having the number 1 team on your schedule probably helps a little bit, I would say. Instead of going a guaranteed probably at least 1 loss, I would say, if maybe not 2, they're now you could probably argue they could be projected to win 2 now instead of maybe 3. Maybe who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they beat Alabama, but Alabama's like right there too. So
yeah, no, it's a tough tournament. There's a lot of really good teams. And I think like a Creighton would be a terrible matchup for Rutgers because of Kalkbrenner, how dominant their center is. But maybe they finish third in their side of the bracket and they get to face Texas A&M, who will be significantly worse of an opponent than Houston. And getting a quad one win is not like they're not all created equal. Like high quad one wins are something that the tournament committee looks more into than
of course
others, but getting that quad one win regardless will be huge for resume building if they end up scooping one up from the tournament, or maybe more. We'll see.
Kalkbrenner, interestingly enough, they had Big East Media Day yesterday. I don't know if you saw this. Got preseason Big East Player of the Year. Was not on the All Big East first team.
Make it make sense.
But the Oregon matchup would be intriguing too, because it's like you're playing them technically later in the season in February 16th. So
yeah, there's a bunch of weird stuff going on with scheduling right now in college sports. Like another tangent.
It's
next year,
crazy.
Washington State and Oregon State will be playing twice in the football schedule. They'll be playing a home and home, which didn't know you could do that in college sports in 2024, 2025. But apparently you can. So they'll be playing twice in the regular season.
You couldn't find anyone else like Eastern Washington. Like there's so many schools up there. Like, and you could.
And what happens too if like say Oregon State wins the first matchup 31-21, Washington State wins the second matchup 24-14. Like who wins the Pac-12 at that point?
I don't know. Is next year when they add all the teams, or is that the year after?
So I think they have 2 years to fill out their conference in order to stay solvent, or not solvent, but like in order for them to still be recognized in some way, they had like a 2-year grace period to fill out the conference. So I think they probably won't have the teams next year, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's so weird. You can't tell me there was an FCS school just like, hey, you want to give us $1 million? We'll come and play you. No problem.
Yeah.
But very weird. One other thing before we sign off. Transfer portal is heating up for football. A lot of people are entering. People are now visiting schools already, which is fucking nuts.
Wow.
It's not even November. What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, this is when a lot of the quote-unquote business decisions start getting made, where like maybe you played the first 2 weeks, you got hurt, now your team's 3-5, and you have an extra. You could technically get an extra year if you just sit out, and you're seeing a lot of those announcements. So yeah, I mean, for as I don't know, hit or miss is the right term, but for as little as Rutgers relative to the rest of college football is involved with the transfer portal, I still love it. It's just so much fun to cover, so much fun to just like see who's entering. It's just it's like a shaking up the snow globe every offseason and seeing where things land. It's fun.
It's like playing college football dynasty and like, oh, I can get that guy, I can get this guy, I'm going to trade for that one, this one, that, this, that. Oh, just signed him, all in on him. Like it is cool. Like for example, the name I'm referencing is Donovan McCulley, Indiana wide receiver, so it's Big Ten related. But he was supposed to visit Michigan. He's now visiting Virginia Tech this weekend, and it's an official visit. Like you're getting like a full all paid for expense for the weekend. So now your high school recruits that you have on campus every weekend are now going to be coupled with transfer portal recruits. This is just, I love it because it's just chaos and wild west, like you said. It's fun. And it's like you get dream scenarios. You could be like, ooh, like maybe Cam Ward goes to Rutgers. Now, obviously not happening, but it's intriguing because I think Schiano, who's been very against the portal, other than filling in the gaps here and there, has to actually be proactive with it going forward. He doesn't really have a choice. That's just the way of the land, way of the world. So yeah, that should be interesting. But that's really all I got for today. Unless you want to really dive in NIL today, we could do that.
Save that for another time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Somehow we filled a half hour just talking about the apparel deal, but I don't feel like we were rambling, so I hope you enjoyed it. And when there's weird topics like this, we'll try and cover them with their own standalone episode as well. But I feel like it would have kind of done disservice if we didn't give this a long form topic. And we just didn't really fit into anything we were doing this week until until you asked if we wanted to do it today.
Yeah.
Big game tomorrow night. Rutgers,
Yankees.
USC.
Oh, yeah, that one too.
That one too. Apparently, Fox executives, when they're putting this game on this specific night, so when they decided to make Rutgers, USC the game after the World Series, the hope was to get one of the New York teams or one of the LA teams in the World Series, so it would bleed over people watching into this game.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, they get both teams. So I think they're pretty happy about it. But I think they would prefer the teams not to be as shitty as they have been this year, for lack of a better term.
That's fair.
But so that game is supposed to kick off at 11 p.m. Eastern. I have heard mixed things about when it'll get kicked off. So there's a half-hour post-game show scheduled right now on Fox for covering the World Series from 11 to 11:30. And then there's local news from 11:30 to 12, apparently. Does that mean we're getting a tape delay? Does that mean they're going to start it on FS1? I have no clue. That's just kind of what I've been seeing in terms of like channel guide stuff.
I just assume they bumped the local news, but the post-game show, I feel like that's very hard to bump.
Yeah.
And the game starts at 8, right, for Yankees? On average, 3.5 hours? 9, 10, 11, 30 post-game?
Yeah.
I mean this with all seriousness. Someone needs to get, Pat Flaherty, caffeine pills or something.
Oh, my God.
Get him a Celsius. Get him a bunch of Monster energy drinks, as someone suggested. Just have that espresso machine running in the press box, ready to go.
Yeah. He's going to need it for sure.
It's wild. I don't know what time it's going to start. That's actually interesting. It's going to be a late night. No post-game show, just to clarify. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. The only outside chance that we would do a post-game show is if Rutgers found a way to win, which, if anyone has watched this team play anytime recently, you shouldn't expect that. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a hater, just being real here.
That's a lot.
But if Rutgers does find a way to win,
4 in the morning,
you might see us at 3:30 or 4 in the morning talking to you, half alive. But if not, maybe we'll do a brunch post game show on Saturday.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Talk a little college football elsewhere too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that is it. Thanks once again for listening. We are still running our basketball preseason giveaway contest. Just for anybody who hasn't heard, just to give a refresher, if you would like to win or be entered to win a replica Ace Bailey high school jersey or a replica Dylan Harper high school jersey.
Not Nike or Adidas.
Not Nike or Adidas, but they are stitched. They're not official from the schools, but they are very nice. There's 2 ways to enter. The first and the preferred way, which gets you 2 entries into the contest, would be going into your Apple Podcast app and giving us a 5-star review and mentioning Rutgers Madness in your review. Second way you can get in is if you go into the comments section below this video and you leave a comment including the term Rutgers Madness. That'll get you 1 entry. So 2 ways to get in. We'll do that contest giveaway before the first game. So we're about 2 weeks out now. So the podcast that we release before the first game, we will do the drawing and announce the winners, and you can claim your prize. But we're really excited for that. I want to thank everybody who has already rated and reviewed us. We've gotten a ton of new reviews, which is huge to help grow our show. So thank you for that. And it's just our way of saying thank you for going along this ride with us. Can't wait for basketball season. Excited for tomorrow night, even though I'm not hopeful. But I am excited to watch Rutgers play, and maybe they'll surprise me. Who knows? But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast. Signing off.